So welcome to Confounded TV, Andy.
Hi, Alistair. How you doing?
I'm all right, yes. You've certainly had an interesting few years. That would be fair to say, I think.
That's a good way of summarising the last 2 years, yeah. Interesting.
Interesting, yes. I took the podcast off air because it was just depressing. So it'd be great to hear somebody who's gone through it and is bouncing back out the other side, I think.
Absolutely.
Could you start with just to give us a bit of background about what you've done and how you ended up picking up this mantle?
Sure. So I've been automotive industry man and boy, as I tell everyone. They love to hear me say that. I've worked for a variety of manufacturers in automotive. I've worked for support companies in operational roles. And then I went and joined a company called Black Bull Media. They produce automotive trade magazines. And I was there for quite a while, and we got very involved in events amongst many other things, so I became very creative. That's how I ended up in this part of the industry. I'm a huge supporter of the industry, big fan of it, big fan of the trade side of that as well. And I get very upset when people pull our industry down. I was involved in a couple of consumer shows in and around London and decided it could be done better. And I went to a few of the big motor shows globally as well. And I just thought, you know what, they're not moving on. They've not moved with the times. And too many of these shows is just a bunch of cars sitting in a room. And even the big ones, you can get there and do them in a couple of hours. And I thought, this isn't what people are looking for.
They used to, I remember reading people who go to them and say, like, they're supposed to be, I walked 6.5 miles according to Strava. Like, that's the best thing you've got to say about a show.
Absolutely. I went to one of the biggest European shows back in 2018. And it was a big show, but it was all static. And after 2 hours, I figured, actually, I think I've done it. And I was then wandering around trying to find stuff to do. And I thought, and I went on a press pass, but I thought, other people, and I was looking at the price of these tickets thinking, this is a lot of cash for a couple of hours. Yeah. And I just thought, there's an opportunity here. And despite some of the naysayers, there's an opportunity to do something really different that supports the industry, but also delivers something really, really different to the consumers. And you look at some of the shows that are really successful now, they're all about entertainment and dynamic stuff. So that's how I set about doing this. And in 2019, I got the rights to the British Motor Show. And we launched in November 19. We were going to be relaunching. We hadn't had a national show since 2008. I
was just going to ask that question. What was the reason for the sort of, why didn't we have a national show for 2008? Because it was a big thing, the British Motor Show at one point.
It was a huge thing. There's a lot of reasons, and it depends who you talk to. Combination of things. 2008, the world was having financial challenges. Yeah. A lot of the global manufacturers were pulling marketing budgets. That was one of the issues. There were too many big shows at that point in time. Every country had a big show, and with those big shows came huge budgets. And if you talk to some of the manufacturers, eye-watering what they were spending. And the other issue was these were 10-day shows, so they're over 2 weekends. So it's not just a matter of, it's going to cost me X to go there. I've got to put people up for 10 days, and I've got to. So the costs were spiraling, and you were looking at 7 digits for a lot of people. So people decided in a market that was struggling, they weren't selling cars, I'm not going to throw millions at these shows. And Geneva did a great job in kind of holding on to their show. And that became the one show that most people didn't. For a while, they were saying, well, we'll do, one in the Middle East or in the East. Of Japan actually was the one. And then you've got one in America, and then you've got one in Europe. And so the others fell by the wayside rather than adapting. And it goes back to what I said about not being very dynamic. It was just a bunch of cars in a room. So lots of reasons behind it. They just felt that they couldn't financially keep it going. So the other thing as well is it was biannual at the end, if you remember. It went from being Birmingham, London, then it was every other year, and then it was just London every other year. And I think people kind of got confused. Where is it and when is it happening? And
consistency is key. Right?
It is, and you see, it's not just the old motor show. It's there's a few trade shows are going this way. They're going every other year. And you're going to go, okay, I get it, because they're trying to help budgets for people. But actually, from a visitor point of view, I think it's the death knell of most shows. If you've got to go every other year, then you're losing a lot of your customers. So it was 2008.
I mean, you literally soon forget. Because
we've all got a calendar of things that happen every year, haven't we?
Yeah, so there's Goodwood, there's Le Mans or whatever. I mean, I haven't been to Le Mans for 5 years. In fact, I'm going this year, but I haven't been for 5 years. But I know it's roughly the end of May or June every year. So, and I could just choose a year and go. Whereas if it was every other year, but is it on this year? I can't remember.
Is it this year? Is it the Classic, or what is it? It's British Grand Prix happens every year. We all know when that is roughly. The Classic Car Show and the NEC. There are these things that people look forward to every year, and I think if you go every other year, that hurt the show. It bounced around. It had lots of different venues.
It wasn't very exciting.
It wasn't exciting at the end, and actually, the other thing, it also. London is not the right place for a motor show. So no matter what people say, London is not a great place for. London's a great place, but not a great place for those kind of shows. So all of those things together really hurt it. And obviously, 2008, the way the economy was, that was the death knell. So it went away. But I decided, look, we are one of the biggest automotive markets in Europe. We still are, even though people think that we don't have an automotive industry. We do. Yeah. We should have a national show. So, I was the idiot at the end of 19 who kind of gave everything up, threw what I had into the business, announced in November 19, this is it, we're going. And then a couple of months later, this annoying bug came along.
Just briefly, the question I was going to ask you was, I think what you did was an amazing leap of faith because you had some experience. Obviously, you love the industry, and you were going, I'm going to do this. And everyone, usually when people say they're going to do something, like the thing to not listen to normally is your friends, because they go, yeah, it's a great idea, Al, so you should definitely do this. What did your friends say when you said, I'm going to do this?
Well, a lot of people said to me, it won't work. Oh, the industry doesn't need that. They don't want that. But what was interesting, though, is you talk to, and I was led by talking to consumers, talking to car fans, who were saying, but actually, consumers want a show, and actually, what we did last year shows they do. We want to go and do this. We love this, but the trader go, no, people don't want it. Actually, no, you're wrong. They do. So you talk to anyone in the automotive industry, they'd say, no, don't do it. You're crazy. No one wants that show. But because I am my target audience, I want a show, and therefore there's a lot of people like me. So that drove me, and the feedback from friends drove me to come up with something completely unique.
And did you have, I could be mistaken here, did you not have the first one all planned before COVID arrived in March 2020?
Absolutely.
So when was it going to be?
It was going to be August 20. That was the original relaunch. We were all systems go. We launched it. We were selling tickets. We had exhibitors. We had Cinch on board as the headline sponsor. It was all looking great. And we were well into planning. And then we hit the first lockdown. And I'm looking and thinking, we might have a problem here. And my initial concern was keeping the lights on for the business. How do I do that? And thankfully, the government, although they didn't specifically help the events industry, in fact, they didn't help the events industry at all. No. But, with the furlough scheme, I was able to keep the team on board. And I got a bit of financial assistance, so we were able to hold on to that. But of course, if you remember, back in March 2020, we thought this thing was going to blow over in 2 or 3 months. And really up until, I reckon, certainly May of that year, we were still looking and thinking, by August, we should be okay. And we made the difficult decision in June, and we just said, this isn't going to happen. And then, of course, everything started unraveling anyway. So we made the decision in June, we're going to push back a year. We're going to go 12 months. Other people were saying, no, you'll be fine by February. But we said, no, this is an indoor-outdoor show. We're not going to do it in February. Yeah. People are going to freeze. So we pushed it back for 12 months. And in hindsight, that was actually the right thing to do. And it was actually a blessed idea, because we were the very first big national show that happened after lockdown east.
People were just, get me out of here. I want to go and do something exciting.
It was a bit of both. So, so you fast forward, the challenges we had bringing people in, of course, is you're talking to big companies on to exhibit. A lot of the big brands have just pulled all of their events budgets because they said, we don't know what it's going to look like. We're going to do nothing this year. So we had to challenge with that. But we came up with different ways of getting people in. So you had that challenge, but then you've equally, as you said, you've got all these consumers desperate to get out because they've been locked up. But equally, what we found was that we had this group that were desperate to get out, but they just had this group who were very fearful, because we were 6 weeks after they'd officially released lockdown, and we only really started. It was the 19th of June. I remember the day. It was the 19th of June. They were supposed to announce that lockdown was lifted, and that gave us 2 months. And they said, we're just going to hold off some of the restrictions for another 4 weeks. And we were all sat down thinking, well, do we go or don't we go? We said, right, we're going to go. We're just going to have to take this risk and we're going to go. And the biggest challenge for any event, particularly something like ours, is, of course, a lot of your revenue comes from tickets.
Yeah.
And people don't tend to buy tickets until about 3 months out. It's the way that the world works for events, unless it's a Rihanna concert that's very limited in numbers. A big event like this, people will buy the tickets much closer to the time. But of course, people weren't buying tickets in April, May, June because they didn't know whether they were going to be locked down or not, and are we going to lose our money? So we had this real issue. And even with 4 weeks to go, we were at less than 20% of where we hoped to be. And it was, as Alec Ferguson says, it was squeaky bum time. And thankfully, it was amazing. And then the 4 weeks when we said we're going and everything opened up and we sat down and I have to thank Cinch particularly, because they put their hands in their pockets and said, right, okay, let's really go for this. And they used a lot of their budget as well to really support the show. Wow. So with the support from Cinch, we threw all of our money to those few weeks. We had a couple of other partners, Select Car Leasing being one of them, who gave us a lot of assets, and we just absolutely went for it. And 80% of tickets were sold in the 2 weeks of the show, which was really scary.
That's so, amazing.
But it's scary as hell. But it went down really well. And I think you're right that there were two types of people: the people who really were desperate to get out, and they loved it, and then the other people who were a little concerned, but they came along and they were buying tickets on the day. Yeah. So 80% of our tickets came from the last couple of weeks in the run for the show.
So and literally even, 2 weeks before the show started.
Yeah.
So you must have been sitting there going, every time the little thing ticked and went bing and you sold a ticket, you must be going, come on, come on.
Absolutely. That was probably the hardest bit for us, because at this point in time we'd got a great show. We knew we had a great show. Show's done. Everything's set up. All of our partners are on board. We've got all the vehicles, got all the live content. Everything's done. Everything's paid for. And I know at this point in time, I've got a show that's going to be amazing. And I know this. My biggest fear is that no one's going to get to see the show. We had a huge site. The size of the site in Farnborough, it's not just the indoor halls. Mm-hmm. We've got acres of outdoor space with live arenas. So even 4,000 or 5,000 people on that site, so a lot of people, would make it look very quiet. So that was our biggest fear. As it turned out, ticket sales flew. We got just under 50,000, and it was a huge success. But it was right to the wire for us, and we were the first really big event. So a lot of people have been watching us, and people have pushed back after us. So everyone was watching us very carefully. But it worked really well, thankfully, and we delivered. And what I'm proudest of is my original vision back in 2019. It was as close to that vision as I really could have wanted.
It sounds just so painful, and just getting there. And just, would it be wrong to guess that if those people hadn't flooded in the last 2 weeks, it would probably never have come back? Would that be fair, or would you have managed to find a way to do it this year?
Well, we had the support. So our partners particularly were behind us, and they're behind us. So we committed to Farnborough for 5 years. We've got Cinch's headline for 5 years. I had a number of other partners. So from a point of view, being able to put the show on in years 2, 3, 4, and 5, we were fine with that. And we didn't expect to make money in the first year. You don't in an event like this. It's all about reinvesting, and it's a 5-year plan. So financially, it wouldn't have been a problem. But if we hadn't delivered enough people through the doors, then you'd have found it much harder to go to exhibitors and say, do you want to come back?
Yeah.
But of course, and that's absolutely key. With a big event like this, you've got two types of customers. They've both got to be happy. Your consumers have got to come back because they've had a great time. Yeah. That's really key to growing the business. But most importantly, all your exhibitors, you've got to deliver something amazing, so they're knocking on your door for next year. Yeah. And thankfully, we've managed to tick both boxes. And we had, a couple of the big manufacturers within weeks had picked up the phone. One of them particularly did more test drives at the show than they've done at any other event in the UK ever. So that was a really nice bit of feedback. And they phoned me up and said, can we come back? Of course you can, yeah.
And I'd like to know more about the event. I just got one question about the change of, the growth of EV, because it strikes me that actually for manufacturers, it's actually quite a good time to be able to get in front of 50 or 100,000, whatever you do this year, because they need people to get in these cars. Because once somebody's been in them, this is my personal experience, then they're kind of like, I'll buy one of them. People have borrowed mine, go off and buy one. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
So this growth is going to be, it's logarithmic now.
Yeah,
I presume
absolutely.
for you, that's what they want to do, is get there to get these people to test drive these cars.
Yeah, that's the whole point. So the two key parts of the show is educate and entertain. Okay. So the entertainment brings people in, and while they're there, we educate them. And it's particularly, you're right, at the moment, the key part of education is EV. So we've got a tech theatre. So all the way through the 4 days, we've got people on stage answering all of these different questions, about range anxiety and why range anxiety isn't a thing anymore, the infrastructure, and like you said, how to drive a car. And I was talking to someone the other day, and they said, well, look, we want to get people into EVs, and they were talking about getting them into cars. And I said, the car, and what you want to do is get them into, and we've got an electric Mini that we're using to promote the electric side of the show. Yeah. And I said, use the Mini. Because when someone sits in a Mini, it looks exactly like a normal Mini. It's just got an automatic gearbox. Yeah. Whereas if you go into, the Honda is a great car. It's a fantastic car. But you've got to be an EV convert to actually get that, to drive that car, because it's a bit funky. Yeah. So for someone who just wants to drive a normal car, it is quite a piece. So putting them in the cars is really important. What we had, so you can test drive, you can sit and press buttons, and then we also have them in the live arena. And the whole point about the live arena is we bring them in, they do a few laps. We've got Mr. Brewer, who's brilliant in the arena. He'll then chat to Ford. They brought the Mackie, so talk about the Mackie, and we encourage people. So they've seen it dynamically. We've had a bit of fun with it, and then we said, well, if you go over there, you can actually go and sit in one, and you can test drive them as well. So bringing that all together is really important for the manufacturers, and there's not many places where they can get it dynamically, statically on a stand, and then get people, bums on seats. I think and that's where I think my trade background is.
Yeah, I think the dynamic thing is really interesting, because you can go and look at them all day long, but I don't think it makes a difference. Being able to get in it, but also you're giving them an environment, I'm guessing here, which is slightly different than going to the dealer for a test drive. Because here you're saying you can get in it. Nobody's ever going to try and sell it to you. They won't even take your details if you don't want to hand them over. Whereas you turn up at the dealership and say, can I test drive your new whatever it is? That it's a different thing, isn't it? You're making it part of that entertainment package as opposed to part of a sales package.
And you're absolutely, it's a subtle there. That's the so we bring people in for a great family day. That's the idea. And while you're there, you're having fun, and then you go and sit in this car and you think, actually, I really like this. Yeah. I'm either going to go and test drive it here, or when I buy my next car, and this is where the switched on manufacturers get it. I might sit in the latest, let's use the Mini gun. I might sit in the latest Mini and think, this is great. I'm not going to go and buy one at the show because I'm not ready for a new car. But 6 months, 12 months later, that's influenced my purchase decision. Yeah. So and you're right in that that's what we try and do. We want to create that atmosphere of fun, and along the way you get in the cars. And it does come back to what I was saying. It's my trade background known. You put a bum on a seat. That's a really good thing to do. And I get so frustrated with some of the big glitzy shows with some of the manufacturers put these huge gin palaces together, cost them stupid money, and they stick their brand new car in the middle and they rope it off. How are you going to sell that car? So we actively discourage this. So we're saying to exhibitors, it's not the money you think it is. In fact, it's very reasonably priced. But rather than come on board, take a load of space, create something Gin Palace-like, and then put a car in the middle. Put your money into putting cars in test drive. Put your money into having a nice number of cars on the stand where people can just sit in. Yeah. And it's not. You might think, this works for the normal everyday brands, the Kias, the Renaults.
It works for everyone.
But actually, it works for everyone. We had McLaren with us last year, and they were selling cars. They actually took leads and sold cars from the show. That's and that's a top end vehicle you wouldn't expect. I met with JLR. They had a retailer there who had a great show.
Yeah, but JLR know this works, Andy, because they go to Burley and all the horse stuff, right? And they have the Land Rover experience for you. Wade, you'll be right next to the eventing course, and you'll take your brand new Discovery and stick it into 3 feet of water. You'll take it over the hub. Then they've got the one that their own drivers do. And the queue, I was always amazed going to Belton or Burley and all these things around here, because the queues for JLR are bigger than the queues for everything else at the event. Because people want the experience. And even if they're not going to buy a Land Rover is cemented in their minds that this is the off-road car. If you ever can afford it, this is the one to buy.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know?
And whether it's new or used, because of course you need a healthy used market. So even if they don't buy a new one, they buy a used one. It props up. People buy the new ones because they got good residuals. You know what it's like in the trade. So it's all about that, and that actually is exactly the show. It's all about that dynamic element. So what you saw there in the Land Rover experience is we've got a whole load of those.
You're doing it bang across so many more.
Whether it's caterums or we've got supercar rides or go-karting or electric bicycles.
Why did I not come to this?
We obviously didn't get into your inbox in time. So actually, no, that was a bit of a challenge for us because we in lockdown, we didn't do a lot of marketing because we weren't entirely sure. We hoped it was going to happen, but it was no point, because we're a new business, we didn't have tons of money to throw at it. So we had to be very careful. And actually, one of the biggest challenges, and I guess it's a good challenge, is the number of people that since have said, I heard about the show, I didn't know about it beforehand. And it's frustrating for me, but it actually means for 2022, we've got a fantastic opportunity. So we've just done a couple of media deals with Greatest Hits Radio. We're working with Auto Express. So we're going to be getting the message out much further and wider this year as well.
What's the maximum capacity you can take?
Oh, it's crazy. It's over the 4 days, we could get 180,000 in there without too much of a difficulty because we've got such a large site. We're expecting somewhere 80 to 90,000 this year, so a fairly significant increase.
I say fairly significant. You're almost doubling at the top end of that. I mean,
absolutely.
That's quite a lot of administration to deal with.
It is, and that's the challenge for us. And the difference between 50,000 and 90 and 180 is quite significant. It's the little things like catering,
toilets,
and actually that was toilets. And catering was that was the biggest challenge we had actually in 2021 because we were the first big show out the blocks. Lots of these little catering units, they'd mothballed them for nearly 2 years. And we were the first time that they'd come out, so they were very rusty, a lot of them. And we were obliged to use the on-site caterers for Farnborough. Mm-hmm. And they discovered that they outsourced it, but the agency that they used discovered that a lot of the people that they had on their books were no longer training. So catering was a real challenge for us. Now, we're addressing that for this year, and it's better. But it is things like that. And what we didn't want, and you see this at shows, is you turn up there and it's just burgers because it's a family show. We want good food. And then you queue for an hour for a pizza. That's not the experience we wanted. So that's the challenge for us. If we're going to go to 100,000 people, we're going to have a lot more catering, a lot more car parking, a lot more toilets. It's but we've got another hall this year. So we're building a third hall. So we'll have more space for people.
Yes, I remember. That's why sort of being up front here. Obviously, I've exhibited at a couple of your previous shows, and that's why I brought the barista and the coffee machine because the coffee in the location in a couple of the early shows wasn't very good. So I brought my own. Then all I did was email all the potential customers and say, "Do you want a really good coffee? Come to mine."
Absolutely.
And then we had a queue out the door, not because they wanted to see our product or meet us. It's just because they wanted a really good, proper cappuccino or a flat white or whatever. It was amazing. And then the next year, everybody brought coffee machines, but then you'd fixed it, so it didn't matter.
But this is what we say to everybody when they come along: is there's a way to do a show as an exhibitor, which is you turn up there and you have a little pod of, let's say it's 3x2, and you try and hand out flies.
Yeah.
And, you could be giving away £50 notes, and that's not going to work because people will walk past you. What you need is something different, be it a coffee machine or be it a batak wall or just something to draw people in. Yeah. And we try to work really close with people and give them that feedback, is because that's also important for us because that's part of our whole show. So the coffee machine is always a great idea. That racing simulators is another one.
Yeah.
I think we have 6.
And in the space, I think especially, I won't say which brand it was because it wouldn't be fair, but I had an order on the electric car, which was pre-order for one of the first ones. And then at a other show, they had it, invited you all the pre-order people to come and see it. And then they had it like literally glassed off in a big glass box. And I was like, before I write the check for 40 grand, can I sit in it? No.
Yes.
You can't. Oh, that's weird. And it was that plus other reasons that I cancelled. But it was just interesting how I think if you look down a generation, everything's experience. And all you've got to do is realize that the reason that is because that's what they want. But actually, if you offer it up the generations, it's exactly the same. It's just not been done before, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah. And that's a good example of where we went wrong for a while. You can't go near this. And for a while, I think, some manufacturers thought, there are some of them. We don't need a network of retailers actually, because people will buy. Some people might buy, but a lot of people will want to, even if it's at a show like ours, they don't want to get in it. They're going to want to sit and look at what they've got. Ideally, have a quick drive, but you've got to have a lot of blind faith to go out and spend 40, 50, 60 grand on a vehicle that you've never even been near.
Yeah.
And it might be an amazing vehicle, but we're all different. You get that car and you think, the color of that is really annoying me, or the brightness of that screen. There might be something, and you've got to live with that for 2 or 3 years. So I do think manufacturers are starting to realise now that whilst they can do the majority of selling online, they do need to get that product in front of people and physically.
So when's the next one?
So next one is 18th to 21st of August. So it's back at Farnborough.
Oh, nice and hot as well. Great.
nice and hot. Good weekend. Fingers crossed. We, as I said, we're there for 5 years. It's the same place. We are not resting on our laurels, though. So we've got more space. We've taken this additional hall. We've got an additional live action arena because that went really well. Taken additional space. So if you came along in 21, you'll see a lot of different stuff in 22. That's really important. What we don't want to do is just deliver the same stuff, because we know it went down well, but we don't want to deliver the same stuff. So it's all fresh, but we know what works, and we're just going to do it bigger.
Fantastic. And how do I buy a ticket?
So you go to the website. It's as simple as that, www.thebritishmotorshow.live. It's £37 for a family of 4, so it's not an expensive day out.
Wow, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say 100 something.
Well, this is the thing. It's back to our philosophy of making this a reasonable day out for a family. It's too easy to pay, £100 a ticket for some of these events, and it's a really expensive day for a family.
It is. Things
aren't easy for everyone. So we intentionally priced this very keenly at £37 on the basis. It's free parking as well. You don't get that in many places. So the idea is that people can turn up, and for under £100, they've had a great day, including food and a few drinks.
That is absolutely fantastic. That is really, really, I can't think, I'm trying to rapidly think of anything which offers me that for that kind of money as a family event. It just doesn't exist.
Well, I went to the cinema there was 3 of us went to the cinema a few years ago. It costs us more than that.
Yeah, I think the fish and chips you get off a stand at any other event I've been to for a family of 4 would virtually cost you 37 quid.
Absolutely. So so the whole concept for us again is it's making it reasonable. It's not just for exhibitors; it's for the public as well. We want people to have a great day and it not to break the bank for them, and that also encourages more people. So it's intentionally, and we kept the prices the same as 21, even though we had a great year. I know some people would go, with a brilliant year, let's put the prices up. That's not our philosophy. Let's just get more people in. Let's deliver a fantastic event.
But you've got the option of getting bigger, right? You can fit a lot of people into Farnborough. If you just look at the air show, right? So you can actually keep doing great performances, make it bigger and more exciting, charge reasonable, and you make a good business out of it, and people have a really good weekend, don't they?
That's it. And that's our philosophy. That's exactly it, Alistair. You've hit the nail on the head. Let's keep it reasonable. Let's keep it fun. Let's make it a kind of open and accessible to everybody, exhibitors and public.
Well, thank you for coming on. I really, really wanted to record this one because I think of all the people, a lot of people, as I said at the beginning, I paused this because of COVID. And I watched your LinkedIn and the persistence. And it's always great to hear an entrepreneur where there's a really difficult story that you persist through and end up with something good at the end. There's always a great story. So thank you for coming on.
No, thank you for having me. It's been good to talk.
Thank you.